Coming up on show 811, the Tesla Model S becomes the world's first 400-mile electric vehicle. And we'll tell you how they did it on the podcast today. Also on the show today, it's not quite an off-again, on-again story, but they are back in bed together for the long term, Tesla and Panasonic. News about the Rimac C_2. Green number plates are back in the news. And Spain's massive aid plan supporting EVs. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're listening around the world. Welcome to EV News Daily. This is what happened on Tuesday, 16th of June. My name is Martyn Lee, and I go through every EV story so you don't have to. Welcome to a new Patreon producer. That'll be you then, Nicholas Miller. Nicola, thank you for becoming a producer of this podcast. It means an enormous amount when anyone signs up to the podcast as a supporter on Patreon, which is a place that you can support your favourite, bands, poets, podcasters, writers. I believe we're called content creators these days, but either way. Nicholas Miller, thank you very much, sir, for being a new producer of the podcast. Patreon, by the way, is patreon.com/EV News Daily if you'd like to find out what all the fuss is all about and get your name read out on the podcast for what's basically the cost of a posh coffee or two every month. All right, let's kick off with this. It's big news. It's the world's longest range electric vehicle. It is the Tesla Model S Long Range Plus. It now does over 400 miles. According to a blog from Tesla, they say the freedom to travel anywhere is critical to the mission. And since the introduction of the Model S in 2012, we've continued to revisit every aspect of the design to deliver the longest range and highest performance EV on the road, they say. Well, starting today, all North American Model S Long Range Plus vehicles have an official EPA-rated range of 402 miles. That represents nearly a 20% increase in range compared to last year's Model S 100D, which had the same design of the battery pack. Significant achievements from Tesla there, and they are obsessed with efficiency and energy frugality. And it's not been one magic bullet on this, by the way. Several changes, iterative, transformational, they describe it, hardware and architecture, from the engineering teams, the design teams, the production teams. Now, this production went into effect earlier this year when they first started making the Tesla Model S Long Range Plus. They had to call it a different name because it's technically a different car. It's the same car, but they had to give it a new name and added Plus to it. Of course, made it to Fremont in California, and it now gets a 402-mile rating. So how have they done that? Okay, going to go through the different ways they've achieved it and then look back over the history of the cars as much as I can remember anyway. First of all, significant mass reduction, they say. Several lessons have been learned from the S and from the 3 and the Y, and they've put those into the S and the X. There's the new Tempest aero wheels and the tyres, 8.5-inch wide aero wheels, reduce the drag, the aerodynamic drag, compared to previous wheels on the long-range Model S. And there's also a custom tyre, all about reducing the rolling resistance. That adds 2% range. There's increased drive unit efficiency, things like the gearbox in the front permanent magnet synchronous reluctant motor, the one shared with the Model 3 and the Y. Better efficiency on that, another 2% range gained over the year. Maximising the regen as well. With one pedal driving, you can bring the car to a stop, with regen braking now working at a lower speed and deceleration rate. The Verge were quick to say that, according to them, on Tuesday, the EPA told CNBC that it approved the new range estimate after the EPA received new data from Tesla gathered during an in-house test. The EPA approved the new label value based on a review of the testing protocols and data submitted by Tesla, and they found it was complete and accurate. The improvement results in a 20% range increase over the car last year. Of course, there was quite a famous semi-falling out, a Twitter spat between Elon Musk and the EPA, because Elon said, "We know the car will do more than 400 miles. We've looked at the data from when the EPA tested it and came in just under 400. And it was the car was left in a kind of standby mode overnight. And that is what happens when you leave the key in the car." And they also said that the sensors, the door sensor, that the driver's door had been left open, which again keeps the car partially awake. Now that is a couple of percent battery, and that was enough to bring it under 400 miles. Elon called them out and said, we got the data on it. EPA, effectively, in this rebuttal that they issued many weeks ago, effectively called Elon a liar and said, no, we didn't. He said, well, we know you did. And then, surprise, surprise, fast forward a few weeks when the heat has come out of the story, the EPA says, yeah, we've got some new data, and it does go over 400 miles. So I wonder what happened there. I wonder if someone got a talking to. I wonder if Dave got called into the office. Did you leave the door open last night, Dave? I didn't mean to. All right, okay. Give it a couple of weeks, and we'll give him the 402 miles. I don't know what happened. I'm making that up, of course, for comedic effect. But something's happened, and there you go. A Model S now does more than 400 miles. And what a journey that car has been on. Back in 2012, it was 265 miles. If you got yourself an 85 kilowatt hour battery pack, you were doing 265 miles. Even in 2014, you could get that car. In 2015, you could get the P85D, couldn't you? So more performance, but less range. That was something like 250 odd miles on that. There was the P90, or there was the 90D, which would then go 294 miles. That edged towards 300 with the bigger battery pack. Then there was where was the 60 kilowatt hour version? The 60 kilowatt hour version only clocked in at just over 200 miles. And that's only like 5 years ago, isn't it? Oh my goodness, how far EVs have come. It's so exciting. There was the 70D, which would do about 240 odd miles, wasn't there? For a time, there was the P90DL, doing about 270 miles. And so these numbers have kind of bounced around as the cars have got closer to 300, the magic 300 miles with the 90D. But of course, it would hit that with the 100 kilowatt hour battery pack in 2016. It then cracked 315 miles with the 100D performance version as well, and that was the one that kind of brought the real kind of the crazy speeds. Now 0 to 60 in like 2 point something seconds, wasn't it? And the P90DL was the ludicrous mode on that was under 3 seconds. So these numbers have bounced around for a while now, but it was, when you look at it, Tesla's doing 200 miles odd with a 60 kilowatt hour pack, and now 5 years later, doubled it. Just amazing, just incredible. And congratulations to everyone on the team who's worked on these kind of cars to get them where they are, to do 400 miles. Huge story today. Very happy for them. Always a great news story when we can kick off with something on the podcast which is so positive and so feel good as well. Staying with Tesla, they have announced a new, well, not really announced, but the paperwork was released about a new 3-year deal with Panasonic, under which Panasonic is going to manufacture and supply the lithium-ion battery cells at Tesla's Gigafactory in Nevada. It cements the deal for another 3 years, according to Yahoo Finance. The deal is backdated to April the 1st, no joke, until the end of March 2023. It covers production capacity by Panasonic and purchase volume commitments by Tesla, so guaranteeing they'll buy so many of these cells that Panasonic are investing the money in making. Well, last month, Panasonic's CFO said they were seeing strong demand for the kind of cells they make for Tesla, even a profitable bit of the business, and they even suggested that they would expand the Tesla Gigafactory in Nevada. Well, Panasonic and Tesla's relationship has been worsening over the last couple of years, and Tesla, we know they're moving towards making their own batteries. We thought this was the end of a glorious partnership, and Tesla have always said that they were happy to work with others, and we now know they are working with the likes of CATL and more in China. And we wondered where the Panasonic thing would be. No longer collaborating on the solar side of the business, but a new 3-year deal means that they will continue to produce the cells at the Gigafactory in Nevada. And goodness me, don't Tesla need an increasing supply wherever they can get them of battery cells for everything from the cars, the trucks, the semi-trucks, and the storage as well. So moving on, and Rimac recently opened a factory in Croatia, and it's going to get busier because they just announced a second assembly line for the bespoke electric hypercar, the C_2. In the next stage of the development of the car, the new production line will help the company accelerate the C_2, we call it the C2, prototype, cutting the build time in half to around 5 weeks for a car. It will eventually let the company build 4 production models a month. Wow, a whole 4 every single month, but only when they're at full capacity, mind. According to Motor1.com, the stunning all-electric hypercar will develop almost 2,000 horsepower, top speed of 260, that's 412 k's, 0 to 62 in less than 2 seconds, 0 to 100 miles an hour. That is 0 to 161 k's, isn't it? From a standstill in 4 seconds. In 4.3 seconds, you're doing 100 miles an hour. That is just ridiculous speed. And if you are listening to this podcast and you have your Rimac on order, I'm sure we have plenty of Rimac billionaires listening to this podcast, then you will enjoy your car, no doubt, whenever you get to drive it. More great news coming to incentivize EV buying. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez just announced a €3.7 billion package to help the hard-hit auto industry and promote EVs, says the New York Times. The Spanish government there's a few layers to this, by the way. First of all, they're spending €250 million on a, well, call it what you like, a cash for clunkers / scrappage scheme to encourage buyers to get new EVs, electric cars in 2020. Drivers get €4,500 off a brand new car if they can scrap a 20-year-old car, which is admittedly very, very old. Other schemes around the world have sort of done 10 or 12 or 15-year cars, old cars, but 20-year-old car, I guess it's in Spain, you know, the cars last a little bit longer, a little bit sunnier, like in sunny climates where there's a little bit less rust on the cars. Dealerships are going to be giving up to €1,000 in more discounts, and Spain will add another €100 million upgrading their own official vehicles, and let regional authorities spend €100 million to upgrade their own fleets to electric cars. A little Twitter post that I spotted that was moderately interesting. A user on Twitter called Hans said, who said the Model Y wouldn't be seen in Europe before 2021? Today at a supercharger in Dordrecht. They were supercharging, well, it was a parked Tesla Model Y in Europe. I didn't see the plug going into it, so I can't say the car was supercharging. What we can say was the Model Y was on Dutch green number plates. That means it was a test car or a test drive car. Many countries have like dealer plates, test drive plates. And that's what this Model Y was wearing. The user on Twitter called Martyn noted the Model Y could be a private car imported for other car makers and other car companies to actually rent out and see what the Model Y is all about. Was it charging? We don't know. Was it on a supercharger? We don't know. But what we do know is if it's imported, and it was, by a private company or individual, it wouldn't be using a CCS plug, certainly. It'll have the US Tesla proprietary connector. Can you put an adapter on that? Can you put an adapter on a supercharger over here in Europe and charge a car you've imported? I don't know well enough, but it's interesting and it's fascinating to see. It doesn't mean that Tesla are going to bring the Model Y here any sooner than the middle of next year because they're going to be built in Berlin, but always nice to see a Model Y in Europe, even if it has been on a boat for a few weeks. Okay, moving on. And General Motors top executive, the head of the company, Mary Barra, struck an optimistic note today about US demand for new electric vehicles despite COVID-19 and the ability to sell EVs at a profit, which so many other car companies say is impossible, especially in China. She says they're going to sell plenty of cars, according to Autoblog. Alex Partners, a consultancy, had predicted that major automakers face a profit desert as they invest in EVs, and they won't be making money from EVs, but only the gas-guzzling cars, especially in the US as well. When asked about that, Mary Barra said, I quote, "We are very excited with our portfolio of EVs that we have coming. We are going to continue on that path. We have a strong future ahead, and I don't see that as a desert." Hopefully we can imply from that the GM do have all their ducks in a row and their EVs will be profitable. Obviously, we want some nice affordable EVs on the market because that means more people can afford them and more people buy them, and that's ultimately what I want to see as presenter of this podcast and a massive EV advocate. But we don't want car companies to be loss-making on them because then they won't want to make EVs. We want EVs to be made at a sensible price where they are profitable, they do make sense from a business point of view for the car companies, and at a price which you and I can afford. Well, a car that I'm guessing you and I may not have been able to afford was the BMW i8. The hybrid sports car has sadly rolled off the production line for the very last time. We say a very, very fond goodbye to the BMW i8 nearly 6 years after its introduction into the international markets. BMW finally called it a day on the i8. It's a plug-in hybrid sports car, great styling. The first time I saw one was at something like, I think it was, back in the day they used to do Top Gear Live with the Top Gear presenters and like stunt shows and stuff, but outside of the arena there'd be like a massive auto show. I think it was at Top Gear Live, or one of those kind of events years and years ago where I saw the BMW i8's kind of prototype or something for the very first time. But they didn't have the barriers around it, they didn't have the ropes. You were allowed to queue up and sit inside, and I kind of fell in love then, all those years ago. Unfortunately, the car's final example just rolled off of the factory line, though, in Portimao Blue, a one-off shade to commemorate the car. The car laid the foundation for an ideal futuristic car with a radical design, 1.5 litre 3-cylinder engine. And that works in tandem with an electric motor to generate almost 400 brake horsepower. Right, final story today. Owners of EVs across the UK will be able to fit their vehicles with green number plates from the autumn, a move that is set to both further raise the profile of battery electric cars and also pave the way for future incentive schemes that will encourage the take-up of electric vehicles. According to Hugo at Auto Express, he says that rather than being a fully green plate, EVs have the conventional white and yellow number plates on the front and the rear. So listeners may know that we have a white background on our front number plate and a yellow background on our rear number plate. But often, on the left-hand side, there's a vertical flash of colour, maybe a couple of centimetres, about an inch wide, and the entire height of the number plates. And lots of people will put maybe the European flag on that, or their country flag on that. Well, on the left-hand side of the number plate will be the green flash on the left-hand side. According to the Department of Transport, local authorities will be able to use these new green number plates to design and put in place new policies and incentives for people to own and drive EVs. Details are thin on the ground at the moment, and what was clear from the announcement was that the government, in this announcement at least, didn't put in any firm plans for an incentive. So they didn't say all bus lanes will be open to green number plate cars. But what they did, so that's going to be left up to local areas. So those local areas could all say, we're not going to do it. And in the end, it just boils down to virtue signalling and the government scoring a few green points, and it might not mean anything. Or maybe local councils will say, we want to offer free parking or other benefits to cars with green number plates. Now, we don't know the details yet, so that's a big hole in this plan. I've not been a fan or a proponent of this idea. I'm not a keen supporter of green number plates. I think, okay, and if you want to know why, I think it creates a two-tier system, a two-class system, and the kind of people who, the gas-guzzling, the petrol heads who hate EVs, the case to drive an EV isn't going to be made any better by them seeing people getting free parking or driving in lanes they're not allowed to drive in with their smug green number plates. I think that just creates more resentment, and I don't know if that's the best thing to really try and persuade people around. I'm not sure jealousy is a good motivator. However, I'm surprised. It was in consultation. I thought they'd come back and say, we're not doing it. We're going to do it. And I think we're going to follow Canada's lead. And hopefully it will encourage local areas to do something with that green number plate. I also had people on Twitter to me today. So, well, that's easy. I'll just put a green sticker over my number plate, and then my car can get all the benefits of an EV. I sort of just friendly reminded them, well, anybody can put any sticker at the minute on their number plate. You can change the letters if you want to. You could, with a black felt tip pen, draw on it. You could put some black tape and have it say different things. But it's illegal, and it's a minimum of a £1,000 fine, and good luck if you get caught by ANPR, which is the automatic number plate recognition, explaining your way out of that one. Over £100 million worth of fines were issued last year alone by ANPR, which is people getting caught by these automatic cameras, either not being insured or displaying the wrong thing or wrong formatting on their number plates. And so, yeah, good luck putting a green sticker on it. So I wouldn't certainly do that, because you'd be breaking the law. What do you think about green number plates? Maybe we should make it even a question of the week, maybe next week or something, because I'm still not convinced that they are a good way forward to create kind of a different class of drivers, and that's EVs. But I will say this when we end the podcast today. I will say that it's only zero-emission cars. It's not plug-in hybrids, and it's certainly not hybrids. And that's a really big problem for car makers that want you to buy a plug-in hybrid. There's loads of work going on at the minute. We've mentioned it on the podcast recently about plug-in hybrids that can sense when they're going into zero-emission zones. So more and more cities are going to have zero-emission zones. Certainly London and many cities around the UK are putting it in, have put it in, or are implementing it soon. So lots of car makers are hoping that technology will fix the situation where you go into that zone and the car's engine will turn off in some way, that you'll drive on battery power alone. The government made very clear that green number plates, when they arrive in the autumn, will only be for cars that don't have an ability to combust anything. So plug-in hybrids, certainly hybrids as well, don't get them, and don't get any benefits that might come with them. Those benefits, like I say, are all TBC. And that's a blow. It's a blow to the car makers that are pinning their hopes on plug-in hybrids, and a blow to people that bought plug-in hybrids and thought they were getting all the benefits of EVs, if there are any benefits of green number plates. And where does it leave a car like the BMW i3 with the range extender? I mean, ultimately, it's an EV, because the electric motor always drives the wheels. But how can a car drive into a zero emissions zone when there is every chance that if it runs out of battery, it will emit? The engine will come on to give you a charge. There's more questions than answers around it at the moment, but it's an interesting development, and more countries could well follow. Hey, question of the week this week. Here we go. I'll read out your answers on a Sunday. Tell me about a conversation that you had with someone where you were introducing them to electric vehicles. Maybe it was a test drive you gave them, maybe it's a conversation in the pub or something. Tell me about a conversation you had with someone where you introduced them to EV. I want to know what you said and what their reaction was, and I'll read out them on Sunday. You can email me hello@evnewsdaily.com or leave a comment on the show notes. No, the YouTube show thing. Oh God. Alright, music! Thank you very much to 231 patrons of the podcast for keeping this show going, particularly my premium partners, Phil Roberts of Electric Future. Must check in with Phil, see if he's still going to be getting his VW ID3. I know he's in line. Brad Crosby, Avid Technology, Brightsmith Group for clean tech talent, Porsche of the Village, Cincinnati, Audi of Cincinnati East, and now Volvo Cars of Cincinnati East, and new nationalcarcharging.com, and in Hawaii, alohacharge.com. Well, if you want to leave a little review on Apple Podcasts, you really help me out growing the show. That'd be amazing. Catch up on socials by searching EV News Daily. Have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow. And remember, there's no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.